here at Women in Tech so far. And now it's time for the most important subject, or at least we think so.
Yeah, we will talk about inclusion through technology, and it's in how technology can play a key role in making a society and people's everyday life a bit better. And we hope for today that you guys can take these subjects with you and continue talking with your friends and colleagues about these things, because we truly believe that technology is that thing that actually can make a difference.
Yes. And I must admit, it feels a bit strange to stand here in front of you guys, so that is real people. I'm used to sit in my bedroom for 2 years now behind a screen, so bear with us and help us. But let's start. My name is Emelie Gustavsson, and I work as an accessibility manager at Swedbank. We work in a unit called Group Channel and Technology, and we are responsible for the digital channels, platforms, infrastructure, and technologies. And one of my biggest mission as an accessibility manager is to drive the topic, to make sure that people within Swedbank and the savings banks know what accessibility is, that we increase the awareness about the human diversity, and that we also develop digital services that is for everyone, basically. And today with me, I also have my dear partner in crime when it comes to accessibility.
My name is Zack Fors. I work mainly as a visual design lead at Swedbank, which means that I spend most time with our design system and with our visual identity, but also a lot of time with accessibility and inclusion together with Emelie. And let's move on. And we will use Menti a bit during these coming 45 minutes or so. So please keep your phones close. And we thought we should start off by trying and see so this actually works. So if you go into menti.com and you type in the code that you see, 58 59 34 17, and then just write something nice to everyone in here, like say hello, and well, make sure everyone feel welcome. Let's see how this works.
Now we will try to
Now it's
switch.
the technique thing, yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Oh.
see if we can get something more in here. Perfect.
So
really
the code
good.
is up there. So it's 58593417.
And it seemed to work.
Yes.
Amazing. All right.
Hi, Emelie. Hi. Whoever said that.
Okay, perfect. Seems to work. We'll come back to this. Menti will be used from time and time throughout.
So let's start. And I guess that you, just as we, have seen that during these past 2 years, our digital use and behavior has changed. Of course, there is nothing good about COVID, but it has, whether we like it or not, it has brought change. For example, we can see like the idea of what a workplace is, how that has changed. Is it a home or an office or home? Probably both of them. Or if we think about healthcare, the possibilities are almost endless in how we can use technology in creating healthcare. And then we are using technology as the most natural thing to keep in touch with our loved ones. Tech has become a window to our hearts. Or if we look at home deliveries of food and almost everything else, that has become an everyday thing for so many people nowadays compared to before. And the digitalization when it comes to culture, of course we have seen streaming services like TV series, movies, sports, etc. for a while. But these 2 past years has been about so much more. I mean, how cool isn't it to be able to participate in a film festival in New York, or to see opera performed live in Melbourne, or take part in a book fair in Helsinki from home, from your couch. You can sit in your pajamas if you want to. That is really, really cool for me at least. So I guess that we are finally here. We did it. We have digitalized our existence. a lot of things that we have been talking about for so long has actually happened in a pace maybe none of us in this room thought was possible. Maybe we didn't think about this before the pandemic, but it has been kind of a kickstarter for many things. But not only that, if we read different trend reports that has come out recently, we can also see the pandemic as a head starter for virtual worlds. Maybe that's the future. So the future is here.
But given that the future actually has it come to those who actually might need it the most? Are we absolutely sure that the future is here for those who really, really needs it? Are we really sure that when we are doing our buying of groceries and food deliveries, that the checkout system really, really works for everyone, for a blind person, for example? Or are we sure that our digital identification methods actually work when we really need them? Or looking at that live stream, where's those subtitles really? Are they there or not? So have we actually thought about all of these aspects when we created this new digital, shiny, fantastic world of ours? Well, at Swedbank, we usually talk with our customers a lot. We spend a lot of time just meeting up and chatting with people. And 2.5 years ago, me and Emelie met a woman. She was blind from birth, and in every sense of the word, she was really, really digital. And she said something that has stuck with us. She said, I have accepted that the physical world is not fully accessible, but I'm not going to accept that the digital one isn't. And these words of hers tells us both about the potential of tech, but it also gives us sort of a hint what can happen if we don't pay attention. Because if we don't, we tend to build barriers rather than solutions. And tech, of course, can be a superpower. It has the potential of actually be a key differentiator in making and creating a society we haven't really seen yet. But it really takes us as a society to start looking into these things on a level we probably have not really done yet. But what do we actually mean when we talk about accessibility and inclusion? To us, creating services and products that can be used by as many people as possible, regardless of their ability, that's usually how we see it. And before we talk more about this, in how our abilities change throughout life and so on, we should look into how the World Health Organization describes the disabilities.
Yes, so in 2001, the World Health Organization redefined the definition of disability. And there is one inclusive design expert and author, her name is Katie Holmes, and she summarizes this really well. So disability is not a personal health condition, as it was defined as before, but now it's about the mismatches in the interaction between a person and its environment. And this is a big change. It moves the focus from the individual to the society. It's not a person's abilities that is creating barriers. It's the society when we build products, services, and solutions. It's there we start to exclude people and build those barriers. So we need to level up in the society and actually create services that is inclusive for everyone, to make sure that this new digital world and the future of the digital worlds also are for everyone. And I once listened to a talk by Jamie Knight, and he is senior accessibility specialist at BBC. And he said something really interesting, because his team's goal is to not disable people. And that is pretty cool, because it is about that. We shouldn't build barriers for people to not be able to use the services or to participate. I don't think we do it attentionally, we don't know about it. It's just that we need to raise the awareness. We need to raise the knowledge about it and make sure that we have this in mind every time we develop things. We need to have the human diversity in mind when we develop things. But let's take a closer look at the different limitations of abilities that we can have, or in different scenarios. And this is from Microsoft Inclusive Design Guide, which is also really, really good to learn more about inclusive design and how to work with it. But the first one is permanent impairments, which is a mental or physical illness or condition that affects major functions over a longer time. It could be that we are born with certain abilities, but it can also be that we are in an accident whose result will be with us for life. And most of the impairments are not visible. The most are not visible, which means that we can't see them. You can't see if someone has autism, or if they have visual impairments, or chronic pain, or diabetes. The second one is temporary impairments. So let's say that you have been in an accident, but you heal after a few weeks. But during the time that you have broken your arm, your abilities are greatly affected, but you heal. And then we have the third one, which is situational limitations of our abilities. So when we move through different environments, our abilities can also change dramatically. So for example, in a loud crowd, it could be hard to hear. Or new parents spend much of their days doing tasks one-handed, for example, cooking and laundry. And many of you might know that it's quite not that easy, as if you could do it with both of your hands. And this gives a great overview of these different perspectives. But there is one thing missing, and I know that they are working on improving these kind of things, but lately there has been additions from others, which I think is really important to show, and that is cognitive impairments, the thinking part. It's about dyslexia, or if you have migraine, or an overwhelming day at work can cause sensory overload. And about every fifth person in Sweden lives with a permanent disability. And globally, it's over 1 billion people. And due to the World Health Organization, these numbers are increasing, due in part to that we are getting older, but also to chronic diseases. And then we have insecure users, or careful users. They often prefer the physical or telephone channel instead, because they feel a bit insecure in the digital one. How can we help them? How can we make sure that they are also comfortable using the digital ones? And then we have language. Just think about the impact of language. I think many of you might have the feeling that it could be hard to order dinner in a country where you can't understand the language. You never know what you get to eat. Or that we appreciate signs that also have arrows or icons on it. That helps really, really much. And there is one more thing.
Aging. You will not escape it. Tech is good for a lot of things, but it still haven't really solved the getting old part. So what happens when we get older? Well, our abilities change. And because even if you have sort of managed to get through life with any major changes to your mind or body, when you get old, things will change. And that's nothing that starts when you're 80. Getting old is actually starting quite early. And you will probably not really realize it until it's there. And looking to myself, I do feel that it's not as easy to drive car during a night as it used to be, or to focus on my mobile screen in certain lights. And that is aging. And that's something we won't escape, any one of us. So, time for some Menti again. Please, use your phones.
I will unlock it first.
Yeah, let's see. So we thought that you should think about a situation or a time when you have been challenged on your abilities, like in the examples we've talked about. And for myself, I remember when I was 15, played football and I broke my leg. And that experience of not actually being able to walk has sort of stuck with me. So think a bit, like, have you had an experience that you want to tell people about? It should be interesting to just see. Yeah, broken a finger. Perfect.
Pregnant. Yeah, I agree on that one.
Moved to Sweden, really good. Bad vision, hurt the hand, yeah. Glasses, I recognize that one. Stressed out, absolutely. Broken arm, wow. Yeah, working Swedish work, yeah, language. Then we too, dyslexia. Actual, yeah, studies. Yeah, you see, I mean,
Writing my
when we
thoughts.
start thinking about impairments like this, most of us have experience.
And maybe we don't think about it, but during these times, our abilities are limited. It is a bit harder to do things, some things at least.
That's great examples. Language, absolutely. Small hands. Snow fog, absolutely. Bad hearing. Wow.
Really good examples.
All right.
So, life happens. We are all unique, and we all have our own abilities that will also change during life in different situations and stages of life. But we all have the same need and the same right to be a part of the society. Therefore, we all need to be responsible for creating technology that also enables inclusion. But we are lucky. Of course, there are many people and companies thinking about these things day in and day out, and there are really, really good trends when it comes to inclusion and accessibility. But we would like to just highlight a few of them.
And I think we should start paying some attention to and give a big hand to actually Google and Apple. I mean, they've been around for a long time and they're doing amazing things when it comes to giving foundation for the rest of us to actually build solutions that are inclusive and accessible in all kinds of ways. Both Android and iOS are great foundations for these kind of things, and also operation system and their phones and so on. So they're very much like a foundation for a lot of other things.
And super good for the users as well.
Very good.
And then we have Microsoft that is dedicated to create gaming for everyone. And this is super cool. And there is one quote that we would like to share, that Katie Stones Paris, who is the program manager for the Gaming for Everyone team at Microsoft. And she says like this: with so many kids spending their time in this medium, this is where we need to start if we want to create an inclusive world. And I think this is so good. I mean, think about kids that are not able to play. They will be excluded in that kind of social world when they are kids.
And maybe that's one of their first experience, to not be able to participate.
Exactly. And then we have, go back. And then we have MasterCard that has launched a new card that's called Touch Card, which allows people that is visually impaired to actually feel the difference between a prepaid card, debit, and credit card, which gives them the independence to actually know what card they are paying with. It makes their life much easier, but it's a simple solution.
Yeah, and LinkedIn, what we see down there, have quite recently joined hands with this super entrepreneur, Richard Branson, to lift dyslexia as a skill set in terms of creative thinking. So now people like me can actually add dyslexic thinking as a tag when you point out your skill sets in your LinkedIn profile. And to me, this is like really, really cool because it shows that we now start to look beyond the limitations of our abilities and actually also start to look for what they can bring.
Super cool. We have this Obi, which is a feeding robot, and it gives independence to people that has like Parkinson's disease or ALS or spinal cord injury or other mobility limitations, because then they can eat by themselves together with this robot, and they can even set the pace and also decide what they want to eat. And it's so cool.
Yeah, and the independence of that is like you don't have to have another person actually feeding you. So it's just an extent of you using forks and knives, but this is more motorized. So it also brings that. It's not just the function itself, but also the strength it carries with you when you don't have to be dependent on another person. Should we mention something about the Metaton as well?
Yes. The world's first marathon in the metaverse. And this is created based on that they want to raise the awareness on inclusion and accessibility, that when we build these future virtual worlds, that we also think about inclusion and accessibility, so that we don't forget that. Everyone should be welcome.
I mean, these are just a few examples. If you start looking for these examples on LinkedIn or wherever you have your feeds and start looking for accessibility and inclusion, you will see so many cool things. And one of those is you can see it up to the left there is actually very much future. There's a lot of experimentation right now going on to see how technology can break down the barriers between signal language and the spoken language. I mean, that's very, very much next level. That's like bringing in a complete new way of speaking to most of us who don't understand that. So, as we mentioned, just a few of all great examples out there, but to better understand the user perspective here, we thought we should give you two examples. So we're talking to two women who uses technology in their everyday life. We're going to start with Mimi, who's got diabetes type 1.
My name is Mimi Hedman. I work in banking as a global process manager. I have diabetes type 1 since 2006, which means my body is not producing insulin. I use a wireless remote controlled insulin pump, and I also have a sensor on my body that is connected to an app in my phone, which continuously monitors my blood sugar levels. This also alerts me and my closest one when my levels are critical. So in everyday life, tech keeps me alive. If I could wish, it might be to have a closed loop solution that would make my life as close to it was before. But I have high hopes for the future, since I see the progress that has been the last decade.
And next out is Susanne, and she is blind due to an eye disease. She will be speaking in Swedish, but the subtitles will be in English, so I hope that everyone will be able to follow.
Hej, jag heter Susanne Arnesson. Jag är egen företagare. Jag driver e-handel, fysisk butik och jag arbetar också som digital tillgänglighetskonsult. Jag har en ögonsjukdom som gör att jag är blind sedan många år tillbaka. Jag utnyttjar den digitala tekniken varje dag, dels i arbetet med mitt företag. Det är bokningar, beställningar, online-möten och orderhantering och kundkontakter och så vidare. Jag marknadsför mig också via sociala medier. Jag utnyttjar också den digitala tekniken privat. Det är shopping och det är tjänster såsom banktjänster, kontakt med myndigheter, bokning av biljetter och bokning av resor, läsa böcker och tidningar och hämta information om det jag är intresserad av. Min önskan är att digitaliseringen fortsätter att utvecklas och att den utvecklas på ett sätt så att alla kan ta del av den och på alla människors olika villkor. Detta gör då att jag som blind kan känna mig ännu mer delaktig i det digitala samhället.
Yeah, and to me, I mean, these stories makes all the difference because it really shows what technology can actually do to a person and that person's everyday life. I think you never really understand it when you just see it from the technology perspective itself, but you also need to understand it from a personal perspective. So, it's not meant it this time. Now we're going to do something scary. So you have to turn to your neighbors and talk a bit, interact with each other. Think about what these films might have evoked, or ideas you got from the examples, or just things we've talked about. Like, spend a few minutes together, get some water if needed, and just share like experience and talk a bit. Maybe some of you know each other, maybe you don't, but let's do the scary thing.
Go on. Ja, oj. Kan vi ta den efter? Vi får jättegärna ställa frågor efter så. Gärna. Ja. Sätter du på din mick också. Okej.
Wow. So fun to hear. So much discussions going on.
Yes. Hope that you have had really good discussions, and we are more than glad to hear more about it after the session if you would like to talk to us.
I think there's going to be coffee, so hang around if you want to. All right. Where are we? There we are. Okay. Before the coffee, we are slowly approaching the end to our session here, but we would like to take the opportunity to talk a bit about Swedbank as well. Because if we look at what our vision as a bank is, it says that we are about to empower the many people and the businesses to create a better future. And we should do that in a simple and caring and open way. And to us, this means that we should have a 100% focus on making things accessible and inclusive. And especially since banking, whether you like it or not, really is a very focal point to most people's life. So, but working with accessibility, it's not always that easy. And it takes a lot of people, and especially in big organizations like ours. It's simply not enough to have one designer or one developer thinking about these things, but it really needs to be something that everyone is involved in. We would like to talk about it, and we usually talk about it as a team sport, because it's not enough of just being a few. Because we see it as like everyone's responsibility to make sure that our services and products really are inclusive and accessible. It's not that easy, but it takes a lot of people to make sure that it works. However, I would like to say it would be enough if we were just a team, but it's not. We also need to think about these things in terms of culture and mindset. Because if we don't have that, we will only end up like creating or firefighting things that doesn't really work. But if we can change how we think about these things very much in the terms we've talked about today, and also making sure that those ideas follow into company culture, it also makes sure that we can work on these things long term and in a sustainable way, because otherwise we'll end up in the firefighting thing again. And well, I'm pretty sure a lot of you people work with change, trying to change culture in your organizations or so, and probably know that change isn't really that easy. But it's always important. So take these things with you, and if you want to know more about how we do it, hang around. But team sport, mindset and culture, long-term sustainable. That's how we try to organize how we work with these questions.
And that's how we think that we will succeed with accessibility and inclusion in a long-term perspective. And remember that we talked about before, that technology is a superpower, and it gives us the possibility to actually create a society that is for everyone. So I think that we all should try to level up and start to think about the different abilities we have, and design and develop things based on the human diversity. Because one day our abilities will be limited, and I don't think anyone wants to be excluded from the society. So please think about these things, and thank you guys for today. And if you want to stick around, we have one last Menti. But you're free to go.
You're
if
free
you
to
want
go, but if you have time.
But this is also a great input from us, for us, because we need to have a discussion. We need to understand what can we do to better support you guys in driving this journey, in making sure that we actually create awareness around accessibility and inclusion.
So it would be really fun to just hear if there's any particular thing that you take with you from this session. Should we see if we can get the Menti up again?
Oh, sorry. No, I didn't start it again.
there. So
Now I think you can
So
answer.
if you come to think about anything, please provide. It would be great input for us, and probably to see what others is taking with us as well. I don't know what time is it. Maybe we have got some time for questions if you're interested.
I think we have like 5 minutes left for questions.
Yeah, so you're free to go if coffee is dragging you. Otherwise, feel free to ask questions if you want to. Look. Superpowers. Yes. Very good. Expand the test group. Super important. We are a lot of people who think this is a key to a lot of things.
So thank you guys, and have a nice afternoon and evening.